to another episode of the Black Girl Business Hour. I am your host, L.Will, also known as Lena Wilson, and I am the owner of Rebellious Beauty LLC, and I am the creator of Sister to Sister Business Networking, Promotion, and Acquisitions Group here on Facebook. We are in full swing with season 2 of the Black Girl Business Hour, and you know how much I love coming on Wednesdays and talking to all our guests that we have been having. It has been a phenomenal list of people that I have had the honor of interviewing over these past few months, and today is no different. But before we get started, people, you know what we got to do? We got to pay the bills. And today's episode of the Black Girl Business Hour is sponsored by Business Beauty Rebel 216. Business Beauty Rebel provides business services for registration to business credit and training to all small business owners. We teach business in real life. Make sure you are following the Business Beauty Rebel 216 on all social media platforms, including TikTok. So today we have a very special guest. Okay. Now, this guest wrote something about himself, but I'm going to insert my own opinion in here. Okay. So our guest today is a very, very good friend of mine. Happens to be the big brother of one of my best friends, and has so many accomplishments under his belt where I have literally seen him grow and be successful, and it has been absolutely amazing to see. Our guest today is Mr. George Lee Jr. Please give it up for him. Give him some claps in the chat. He is not only our first male guest, and like I said, he's a very good friend of mine, but let me give you a little background. Mr. Lee, also known, he used to go by Echo. I guess he done came up, you know.
Yeah, don't grewed up a little bit.
Grewed up, just a little bit. But he is a self-published author, a poet, who began writing at the age of 12. And I can attest, I've heard him write all my life. Like literally used to hear his stuff all the time. Words have always been a term of expressing, terms of transparency within sharing his experience. His journey began with composing poetry before it blossomed into becoming a fully realized ambition, which took form as spoken word performances, showcases, and open mic features all throughout the Midwest, as well as cities like New York, Detroit, of course, his hometown here in Cleveland, Ohio, Atlanta, and Philadelphia. It was in 2015 that he was inspired to compose collections of letters and write his first self-help book called LovHer, which I have. Matter of fact, I'm going to go off script because I have to show, and I don't have LovHer, I have Dear Future Wife, but this is one of his many books. Here, his first book was called LovHer. It has so far done modestly well within the state of Ohio, as well as some parts of Atlanta and Philadelphia. So thank you, George. I gave you all your introductions. I actually don't have LovHer. I have Dear Future Wife.
Oh, wow.
Which I have here in my hand, which was signature by...
There you go.
Yes. So this is one of his many books that he has wrote from his many, many love letters and relationship books. So please, again, give it up in the chat. Hand claps for Mr. George Lee Jr. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on our show and being our first male guest. This is really big for our platform. So thank you so much. So, what have you been into? What you into?
Well, a lot. Well, first off, I'm not stepping away from writing, but I haven't written in a minute. I've been doing a lot of paint and sip events because I'm also an artist. My major was in illustration, so I am a painter, illustrator. So I do monthly paint and sips here in the Columbus area.
And you have done some area also, right?
Yeah, I did actually. My first official paint and sip was in Cleveland back in December of 21. And then I did another one up there last summer.
Your tips, now I know when people hear paint tips, they just think we about to get together in a room, we about to have some boards and drinks. No, his paint tips have a theme. Like they're gonna be Michael Jackson, they're going to be R&B. Like explain how you got to that concept of making them think, how did you stand out? Because it's been an oversaturated field with the sipping paint. So how did you say, I'm gonna make them different?
Yeah, and that's the reason I came up with that theme, because I felt like, you have your plethora of paint and sip events that you can choose from. So when we first started out, it was a modest turnout, but I love music. Everybody on social media knows that I'm a music head. So I'm like, how can I differentiate this from the other events? So it all started with the Mary J. Blige one. So, yep. So Mary J. Blige came out with her album, Good Morning Gorgeous, back in early 22. I told my wife that was my favorite Mary J. Blige album in probably easily 10 to 12 years. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make the paint and sip theme Mary J. Blige. And from that point on, it's been a wrap.
It has taken completely off, because that is such a great thing to make it seem like, I'm a huge Mary J. Blige fan. My life is like my all-time. I don't know what my life was speaking to my 16-year-old life, but it was.
Yeah, right. Oh, it was speaking to me when that album dropped. It was speaking to me for sure.
I said, what you was going through? You was like 15, 16. I was going through it. Okay, Mary spoke to me.
Right.
So I think that's really dope that you stood out. And a lot of people don't understand, when you have a business that other people are doing, not that you can't do it. You just have to find what makes yours different to make it stand out. And I think having a theme to those sipping paints was a dope idea. So that's dope. So let's get into this. When did you start writing? Which I know, but when did you start writing, and what was your motivation for writing?
Well, yeah, so I started writing at the age of 12. Really, I started out as a rapper. I used to rap. So everybody that knows me back in Cleveland especially knew that I used to rap. Everybody at John Adams and Whitney Young Jr. High, that's what I did. Yep. So and then I started at the same time writing poetry. And really it was just you grew up basically with my family, so you already know there were years very strict household, wasn't allowed to listen to a lot of secular music. So really my writing started as a coping mechanism, just as a way to entertain myself, since we wasn't allowed to have that type of entertainment in the house.
There we go.
There we go.
I wasn't even one of the kids, but I need to abide by the rules too. Like, I can't listen to it either. Okay.
Right. When you used to come through, anybody that came through felt like they was under the same rules. But yeah, that's why I started writing. So just kind of a way to, and then what I used to do, because we could only listen to gospel music. I remember me and my cousin Myron, and my brother, we used to take secular songs and put gospel lyrics to them. But yeah, that was the beginning of my writing journey. And it saved my life. It was a way of just kind of getting through a lot of dark years, being a teenager and a preteen in a very strict, confining household where we couldn't do anything. So by the grace of God, it was definitely my writing that saved me.
Was that something that started around the neo soul era of like Jill Scott, Raheem Devon, things like that type of music era? Was that something that started around there?
You're saying, you mean when I started writing?
Or just some of your inspiration? Like, I know the late 90s, late 90s was really a big push for neo soul.
Yeah.
So was that like some of your motivation for that?
A little bit. Well, I started writing way before that, but I would say between the golden era of hip hop, which a lot of people deem from 87 to 93, and then I would say the neo soul era, I felt especially because that was the last years that I was really trying to get into the music industry. So I definitely felt a kinship to a lot of the folks that were out at that time. As a matter of fact, I got to meet a lot of them just because of my travels. I used to go to Philadelphia and New York by myself once a month back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was a spot called the Black Lily, which a lot of people don't know. That's where a lot of them got discovered. That was kind of the hub for the Roots, Jill Scott, the Soulquarians, which was a collective of artists like D'Angelo, Common, Talib Kweli, that used to go to that spot. So I ended up I would go there and spit poetry, and I ended up meeting Questlove and Jill Scott, and I met Alicia Keys and all of those, and felt that they were my contemporaries while I was trying to get a record deal. You're a little low.
Yeah, there we go. It doesn't look.
There we go.
Sorry, y'all. So what inspired you to write the book, LovHer?
Just as I started getting older, just, and you're getting older when you start to separate what occurred in your generation to what is going on in the generation under you. So for years, I worked in a lot of the colleges in financial aid. So I started seeing a lot of the habits and the behaviors of the generation under me. So when I was probably in my 30s, I started observing the 18 to 19 to 20-year-olds, how they carried on in their relationships. So I just started to see a heavy decline in how a lot of us were treating you all. And I just felt like I was blessed enough to, you have a lot of men out here that didn't have any examples. They didn't have a father figure. They didn't even have a male role model outside of their family. And I was blessed enough. And I know, and I didn't take it for granted. I knew that I was blessed enough to know that I did. So I just thought it was my duty to pull from that and to come up with a book that I put in the format of letters, although as if they're addressing my fellow men, on how we could just better treat our women just based off of what I was taught and what I saw coming up.
Right, and I can say you are romantic.
Yeah.
Like, you're definitely the flowers, candy, song, poetry, shebang, the whole nine.
All the little things. I'm a little things person. I've been, me for years. I've been this way probably easily since I was my son's age.
Crazy. So in a relationship thing, what do you consider the most important element of a relationship?
Without a doubt, communication. If you would have asked me when I was younger, up until maybe age 30, I thought it was and it was probably based off of my experiences. For me, it was trust, just because of what I had been through. But it wasn't until I hit my 30s, and not even a relationship, but even just anything that you're involved in. I'm like, oh, it's communication. You don't really have anything functional without that. Whether at your job, at church, among family, if the communication isn't healthy, then it touches, and that's the only area that touches everything else. For me, there's no other area that touches everything else like communication.
Thoughts into something that people have. Communicate with your partner. Like, don't take it to Facebook. Don't take it to
right.
Instagram. Take it to your partner.
Right, and it's all about like in any forum, like your job. If you feel like your boss is not giving you the resources you need, or the department isn't, you need to communicate that, right? Exactly. It's the same thing within a relationship. Closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to, hey, this is what I need, as long as it's within reason. And a lot of us don't do that, because a lot of us don't want to rock the boat. And then you have instances where some do it, but then they don't do it in a healthy manner. You have to also communicate in a healthy manner. I talk about in my book, proactive listening. I remember talking with an older couple maybe about 10 years ago, and they had been married for like 70 years. This was like a 90-year-old couple that I was speaking with. It was one of my friend's great uncles. And he was like, don't just listen, proactively listen. So you're not listening to respond, you're listening to listen. Because what's the point in listening if you're just thinking of what to say upon them finishing? And I will never forget that.
That was great advice, especially for some people who've been there.
Right, exactly.
What do you think why do you think there seems to be a decrease in healthy relationships or even romance in general? And I can say these young people, I don't know what they think romance is, but
Yeah,
like, I mean, I ain't saying you gotta go Luther, but
right. Well, now that you okay, so you say Luther. So to me, that's part of it. So to me, it's multifaceted. It's just not one reason, but a big chunk of it does have to do with the culture. So I came up on, you know, when you're in those years, from 9 years old to 18, you're mad impressionable. So I'm listening to Luther Vandross, Anita Baker, Babyface. I'm listening to these songs like, I guess this is what you're supposed to do. You know, songs that are written by men who are earnestly talking about genuinely loving a woman. And this is what you're supposed to do. And you're beautiful, baby. You remember the lyrics. That's you're beautiful. You're my number one. Can you please stay? I want to treat you. Those were common lyrics from easily the 80s all the way to the neo soul era. And after that, it was a wrap. So I really feel like that's a large part of it. I think another part of it is even back then, a lot of my friends didn't really have dads that they could look up to, but I remember a lot of my friends had male role models. So, okay, if they didn't have their father, they had the coach at the school. They had the track coach. They had a deacon. I remember my one friend, he used to talk to his deacon all the time. He didn't have a dad to talk to. Or he would come over and talk to my dad, you know.
Your dad was awesome.
Yeah. So I do believe some of that has to do with it. A lot of we don't have as many examples as we used to when you're talking about people. We don't have as many examples as we used to, even with TV shows. If you're watching A Different World, you're watching an earnest love between Dwayne and Whitley. You're watching images of yourself on TV through the Huxtables. And you're just automatically. I was watching Cosby Show at 12, thinking, oh, okay, I guess that's what it. You're assuming that's how it's supposed to be, but we don't really have much of that now.
No, because and it's crazy that you say that because I was watching Martin today, and it was the episode where they broke up, and he had Brian McKnight sing in the park, and all these, like these TV shows, and like you said, the images for the kids today on YouTube and everything don't reflect longevity and commitment, and it's just like work it out, do you find somebody and go off? It's like wow, we got shows like Flavor of Love. Well, let's put 6 people or 10 people in the house and you choose one. Let's make it a competition.
Right.
Ridiculous. Like
even when I just finished saving a gang of R&B albums on my playlist, but these are R&B albums that really you're not going to hear a single song on the radio. Like I love the Lucky Days and the LMAs. So for anybody saying R&B is dead, it's not dead. It's just not mainstream. It's not in front of you like it used to be. So, but most of the R&B singers sound like rappers. They're mad profanity. They're talking about pills, hitting it from the back. That's like, I'm trying to imagine if that was mainstream R&B back when I was growing up.
There we go. I call them the Molly Percocet era. Everything is Molly and Percocet. Like,
that's it, Molly and Percocet.
Like in our interview, I always, and they'll tell you for every interview, literally Anita Baker is playing in the background.
Yeah. I mean, whew. I remember there was a poll, a Billboard magazine in the early 90s, the most common word in a love song, it was stay. And then there was a study done in, I think 10 years ago. And I think the name of a drug was the most common for the year of that. And they were just doing like mainstream R&B as far as the lyrics. It's like, yeah, the romances, there's nothing really to view to see that's in front of you. You got to dig for it,
Yeah. And just lyrics and well, they're not creative, they're not romantic, they're just repeating. And it's like just listening to the beat.
Yeah.
You want to hear you talk, okay?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a different era. Of course, we weren't going to be like our parents, and our kids won't be like us, but
I'm gonna tell you, now you know my mother, right? When I bought Mariah Carey's first cassette and Toni Braxton's first cassette, she stole my cassettes out my room and was listening to them like this is, and you know my mom, you know she's old school, she could sing, you know. So I think this is this is the first generation where, because our parents, I remember my father loving De La Soul. My dad loved KRS-One. My mother loved Toni Braxton and Mariah Carey. That's the difference now between this generation and the one under us. We're looking at them now, again, saved from the stuff that you don't hear on the radio. But this mainstream crap is like, what are y'all talking about?
You say that because my kid, like, we think, you know, for us, old school is Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
Shy Lights and all that stuff. My kids, my oldest daughter is 25. My kids think old school is Jodeci and I'll Be Sure.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's still new.
Yeah, and it's old school to them because it's we're talking 30 years old. It's 30, yeah.
The whole Jodeci epiphany, like, came out in like 91. Like, oh my goodness, how long was it? But and my kid, like, I'll be playing it, and my kids will come in and be like, "Oh, here she go with the old school," and I'm like, "Really, Jones?"
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that's shifting. You know, I still listen to Tina Marie and Rick James and all these old groups, and now my kids, you know, their old school sets at their house is listening to Jodeci and Tony. And it's so funny because I'll come in and I'm like, "Oh yeah, y'all got it going on." They're like, "Yeah, we having our little old school set." And I'm like, "Really? That's old school?"
Yeah, most definitely.
But that's how everything is shifting.
Yeah.
I'll be so interested for me having a child as old as 25, but one as young as 7, to see what his generation considers the love song or the old school. Like, it's gonna be old school rap at some point. That's a scary thing to think about.
Yeah.
You know, we think me personally, I think KRS-One is one of the greatest lyricists of all time.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
He didn't get pressed, but he hands down one of the greatest lyricists. I think he is gonna come and say, "No, I think Future was one of the greatest." I fear for stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
That was terrible.
Right.
So now that we're on this topic of you know, music and stuff, give me your top favorite love song.
My top 5 favorite love songs?
Yeah, you give me top 5 favorite love song.
Oh, that's easy. Number 1 of all time, well, my favorite song of all time is Ass by Stevie Wonder.
Yes, and I think I knew that.
Yeah, that's just poetry. It's poetry. And what's funny, that's not even my generation. That's our parents' generation. First time I heard that, oh my God. Just, oh my God. Now, you know me, I listen to everything. Everything. So second, there's a song by George Michael called Cowboys and Angels off of his Listen Without Prejudice Volume 1 album, which is ridiculous. That's probably 2. Number 3, every time I hear it, Starship by Norman Connors. You went lower a little.
Sorry about that. I love that song.
Oh my God. And again, that's our parents' generation. Love that song. Another one I would say that it gets a little after number 3. LTD. Yeah, you know what I ain't about to sing it, but that's, oh my God. If I would have to choose a 5th one, man, I would have to say Fortunate, Maxwell. Now, Maxwell is probably one of my favorite male artists of the last 20-something years. So I had to go to Maxwell. Fortunate, most definitely.
List. I think that's a really good list.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're not subject to one genre of music. Like you like all different
I
genres.
listen to everything. Everything.
That's the one thing your sister and I, and for those who don't know, his sister is my best friend. That's the one thing Shelly and I always had in common was our love for different music.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I listen to everything.
Weirdos that like Alanis Morissette and
Nirvana.
Yeah, you know,
Oh,
we were the two that if you were wearing gold, we were wearing silver. That was always, we were just like, we set out to be different.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that's what always kept her and I together. I remember when Michael Jackson's double CD came out and Stranger in Moscow came out. I think me and her played Stranger in Moscow until the tape broke.
Now, I wish we were talking back then because that is my favorite song off of that album. And then the video is underrated. The video, which came out years later and didn't really come out when the song oh my God.
Always an underrated song. Me and her listened to that. People thought we were weird. People didn't even know that was Michael Jackson.
Right. I play it now and some people be like, who was that? That's Michael. That's off of the History album.
We listened to that. But that's what I'm saying. We were always here. Always big. Like, you know, if the beat was good, and I tell my kids that my kids listen to everything. They listen to Everlast. They listen to Paramore and stuff.
Oh
like
yeah.
That. You know, and I like Paramore, and you know, I listen to disco music. I always say I was born in the wrong era.
Yeah.
Because I like disco music. It's upbeat and fun, and I'm a huge Bee Gees fan. So like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I've always been there. So just hearing those lyrics and made you like feel something. Like Original Woman is one of my favorite songs. That verses. You know what I'm saying?
The lyrics in that song.
That don't speak to you like I don't know what. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was positivity before positivity was a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and Isley Brothers and things like that. So I think like when certain songs these days are talking about relationship and it's just like, you know, I'm hitting it and quitting it, or, you know, just I'm gonna hit it for one night. And it's just like, wow. Man, don't get me wrong, because I've listened to a few Bootsy Collins songs where I was like, oh, I clutched
right. But it's the fact now that that's over, it's the overpowering thing. The balance is gone. Because I tell my son, we had rappers back in the day that couldn't rap. But how many of them were there? It wasn't a lot of them. But our generation, we owned our flawed performers. We all knew, I love Al B. Sure, but we all knew he really couldn't sing. You're a little low.
But man, I was a huge Al B. Sure fan. But this is so crazy that you mentioned him. I was listening, his video right now came up, and I just realized how much I love that song.
Oh yeah.
But he wasn't a strong singer.
And because I remember he was on the Oprah Winfrey show. The first time I heard him laugh. So I was geeked. I had just got his cassette. The first one with Night and Day on it. I'm like, okay, he was horrible. But we owned we knew who couldn't rap, we knew who couldn't sing, and we did not defend them. We knew Hammer wasn't really a strong rapper. He was an awesome performer. I ain't never heard anybody say Hammer, he got lyrics. No. He's an awesome performer. You love that.
I think people confuse singers and performers.
Yeah.
Some people like J-Lo. She can perform.
Yeah, she's a great example. But the generation now, it'll be somebody that can't sing. Oh, they can't sing. Just it is what it is. Yeah.
People like Ella May or all these I ain't gonna say Ella May, I think she's a decent singer, but these
Yeah.
Summer Walkers and all them, I can't really.
I can't. I tell my wife we battle with that because she loves Summer Walker. I can't do it. I tried. I tried, but most of the album is B Word, MF. Then you could tell she has talent, but I feel like about her, how I feel like about Chris Brown as of recently. His material doesn't match up with his gifts. When I bought, not bought, I was trying to give Chris Brown's album a chance. First of all, it's like 30 something songs, or at least 20 something songs, and only 8 of them were worth anything. But it's like he was talking, most of the songs were just talking about hitting it from the back. I'm like, okay. Track 2, hitting it from the back. Track 3, hitting it from the back. Oh my God.
He's changed dramatically too in his music. I loved his early stuff.
Oh my God. I loved him in the beginning, but it's his material just doesn't match up to his talent. He could have, at this point, he could have been much bigger than what he was, but his talent limits, his material limits him. And that's why I feel like Summer Walker will never be like what's a good example? Even like all the accolades Jasmine Sullivan got.
Yeah, she's a legit singer.
Yeah, she'll always be that ratchet R&B singer. That's YOLO, I can't.
Very monotone singer. Like, that's what I think she is. Like,
yeah, there's no range.
Yeah. Y'all ain't hitting no notes like Jennifer Hudson and then,
Right. I love Ari Lennox. I love Ari Lennox.
Yeah. Well, you know me. I'm still old school. Just give me Jill Scott and Erykah Badu, leave it on play and don't.
Yeah. That's, you can't.
Hold on. Yeah, we got a certain glitch. Yeah, internet.
Can't go wrong.
If y'all got questions, make sure you pop your questions in there. I've been, but 2 music heads, that's what you're gonna get. So
most definitely.
With all of that though, in your writing, like who are some of the people that just inspired you in writing?
Well, in the beginning it was songwriters. Stevie Wonder, Prince. I was the kid sitting Indian style on the floor reading the liner notes. So when I read the lyrics, and I miss when albums came with lyrics, I felt like I was reading poetry.
Somebody in the comments said yes for Ari, like they like Ari Lennox too.
Oh my God, I love that album.
Yes, she's one of the few young people that I do like. But back to our question of, like I said, who inspired you in writing? You said that a lot of it was lyrics, and if you have I pay for YouTube music, lyrics come with everything, which is good because it's some songs that I still don't know all the words to. So, FYI.
Right.
So who inspired you in your writing?
Yep. In the beginnings, it was Stevie, Prince, Lennon, McCartney. That was the beginning when I was little. Between Beatles, Prince, Stevie, and then just getting older, I discovered the poet Nikki Giovanni. And then in the 90s, when performing poetry got popular, Saul Williams. A lot of people don't know who Saul Williams is, so I always say, if you watch the show Girlfriends, he was I can't remember the character's name, but he was her boyfriend.
He was Lynn's boyfriend.
There you go. Yep. And and I actually got to open up for him in Cleveland when I was still performing a lot back in 2014.
So what do you have? What are your other and future ventures that you're working on currently?
All right, currently. So I am working on a follow-up book to LovHer, which those who are not aware, LovHer, right here, is my book that's available on Amazon, my relationship book, the one we mentioned earlier. I'm working on a follow-up strictly about communication. Because really, when I started writing this book in 2013, it was supposed to be about communication, but I ended up writing about all the various other areas as well. So I want to get back to writing a book strictly on communication. So that's what I'm working on right now, as well as just continuing to do my paint and sips and trying to also bring the paint and sips back to Cleveland as well.
I was just about to ask when you're coming back to Cleveland.
Hopefully sometime this summer, but I'm gonna need y'all support because I tried to do one there last fall, but I couldn't sell any tickets.
But I'll definitely keep you abreast of what's coming up. So make sure you look out in the group for that.
Yes.
And I think they're awesome. I'm not traveling as much, so I'll be there. Last year I couldn't come because I think I was in Philly or something like that.
Yeah, I remember. You told. Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, shit. Yeah. So, in closing, first of all, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show. Technical difficulties because me and this little microphone, we've been fighting today. I don't know why we fighting.
Technology, boy.
It's aggravating, as the kids will say. It's aggy, okay?
It's aggy, yeah.
Do you have any closing remarks, suggestion? You want to drop a poem right quick? Whatever you want to do in your closing. What do you want to say?
Well, I just dropped my credentials as far as like where you can find me. So right now I have my books on Amazon. You could the book I mentioned, LovHer, which is if you just key in LovHer, George Lee Jr. That's on Amazon right now. Also have a book of erotic poetry that's on Amazon under my old pseudonym Echo, and that book is called Moist. That's a book of 36 erotic poems. You can also keep up with my paint and sips through IG. If you go to Paint Poetry and Potions on Instagram, or if you go to Mr. Lee _1973 on Instagram, and then on Facebook, I'm George Lee Jr., as well as Mouthpiece Publishing, and the piece is spelled like peace as in War and Peace, PEACE. And then there's also a Paint Poetry and Potions page on Facebook as well.
And I'm gonna have all of those links for you, so make sure you check his stuff out and support him. Like I said, do you do public-private events? Are you available for stuff like that?
Yes, I do. I post all the time. I do private paint and sips, which actually I enjoy those more than the bigger ones because it's just more intimate, and then it means more. Like I did one that was a friend of mine for her aunt who passed away, and it was just so sweet. I did a painting of her aunt, and then it was a surprise. Her family didn't even know what was going on, and they all came, and they didn't know that they were painting their aunt. It was just I felt like I was a part of the family for those 2 hours. So I do private paint and sips. The cost depends on the number of people. So anybody can reach out to me for that as well, which I enjoy doing those.
You want him to come out and do your private session? I'll have that information where you can contact him and get your private session set up. So thank you all for hanging out with us with this horrible, I would say it's like the Matrix. It's all bad, okay?
Right. It's all good. We weathered through it.
I always say, if there was a resistance, I was going to be scared of it, okay? So, thank you again for hanging out with us. Thank you, ladies, for hanging out with us. Of course, this will be posted on my YouTube page and on the Business Beauty Rebel website. Come back and join us next week. We have 2 shows scheduled for next week. We have Miss Yannicka Smith, who is the head of the Detroit Natural Hair Show, and we have our very first business shower recipient, Miss Betty Williams, who is coming on board. Finally, I had to pull her leg, but she's finally coming on the show, y'all, to talk about her experience with the first business shower that we had a couple weeks ago, which was amazing. So I thank all of you all again for being a part of that. And of course, always for being a part of this. You ladies are awesome. Thank you so much, George, for doing my
thank you for having me.
Anything I ask for, he comes through. So I'm always happy to have him come aboard. And when I was like, I'm expanding, you were the first person I thought of. So you are literally the first person outside of this group to be on this.
And that's humbling. That's very humbling.
And thank you for being always a good friend. And hell, you're not a friend at this point. It's like family, I've hung out.
Yeah, we're family.
I've known his sister since we were like 12 years old. So
right.
We ain't no more. So I can't say 12 no more. So
right.
How long her and I have been friends. So everybody, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Go Cavs. We in the playoffs.
Yes, yes, indeed.
For all of us, this here is the John Adams Connection. I always like to recognize our rebels in the house.
Yes.
And again, we'll be back here next week for the Black Girl Business Hour. You all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. George, you have a wonderful evening. Tell your wife I said hello, and you
I
all.
will. You too, Miss Lena. My love to the hubby.
Yeah. Well, let him. Good evening, everybody. Peace.